Well, I mean, the most obvious one is to have fish listed as an animal in animal welfare legislation universally, and that's something I've been arguing for, forever here in Australia. Our legislation is not federal; it's state by state. And so, you have these absurd situations that on one side of the border, you can do pretty much anything with fish. On the other side of the border, they're protected. But even in those states where they are protected, there are almost universally loopholes to allow recreation and commercial fishing. Um, I personally think that ultimately we have to close those loopholes. That might be a bit of a pipe dream at the moment because the industry itself is worth a lot of money, feeds a lot of people, employs a lot of people. It's worth a lot of money. It's a $1 billion industry. But if can we at least get fishes included in the definition of an animal so that they can be included in animal welfare legislation in every state? You would have thought that by now that would be the case, but I dare say if you look at the animal welfare legislation in the United States, you will find that almost universally fishes are not covered. It's true that they are covered in the EU, but even in that context, the level of policing is low. And why? Because I think the political interest in following that up and spending money in that area is just not there. It's growing, but it's not there yet. But I think it will get there. But there are places and states and countries around the world that do have very proactive animal welfare legislation, forward thinking. They're not blinded by industry. It's directed by science, and I suspect that much of the variation we see in Australian welfare legislation has got to do with the practicalities of allowing industries to keep doing what they're doing, and if you started to recognize that fish had feelings, then many of those things have to stop. And there's a great reluctance to change the way we do things. So I think that would be the very simple thing. My next low-hanging fruit really would be aquaculture. It'd be aimed at aquaculture, and I would say universally we have to start applying animal welfare legislation across the board to aquaculture. It's not a difficult thing to do. As I mentioned before, we have the existing infrastructure. We just have to include fishes in it. Similar sort of things. Yes, there's knowledge gaps, but could we come up with a best guess scenario, make the best of the bad situation? I think we could. So you could make great improvements in the lives of billions of fishes held in aquaculture situations simply by taking that existing infrastructure and applying it to aquaculture. So for me, those are the two most obvious things.
What about the trolleys?
The trawlers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the trawlers. Yeah.
And yeah, don't know. Look, the cynic in me thinks that wild capture fisheries, the days are numbered. It's already the case that more food products, fish products for human consumption come from aquaculture now than come from wild capture. So I'm kind of hoping that it kind of dies a death quietly because it's been such a ridiculous industry for so long. It's basically done whatever it's wanted for as long as it's wanted, to hell with the consequences to the environment and so on. At some point, somebody's going to have to be brave enough to rein that industry in. But I haven't seen a politician yet that who's going to take that on. It's going to have to be a public perception thing that drives the politicians to make those hard decisions, I think.